Hold on a second, guys. Come on. There we go. Okay, so we are live now. Hello everybody. How's it going? Um, the Today I am going to be reacting to some hot hot American history takes. So first of all, as is traditional, I'm gonna open up the first batch of beer here. Let me grab it out. I'll be drinking a local brewery here in Albuquerque, uh, Scotia from Bosque Brewery, um, which happens to be within walking distance of my house. Um, but there we go. You know, the funny thing is, last time I started a stream on YouTube, I actually ended up spilling a little bit on my lap the first pour. So let's not do that this time. There we go. All right. And cheers, everybody. So, how this is going to work? I'm going to. I asked for these hot takes on Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Threads. So actually, I have a little ticker here that'll keep it explaining at the bottom. But I'm going to be trying to go through that, but I have something like 140, 150 comments that we could possibly go through, so it's going to take a while to get through all of this. So I will be trying to look at your guys' comments here. I can see there's already a lot of people trying to give their own hot takes, but this is specifically, I am reacting to hot takes that I've already gotten on socials, on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Threads. But also, I have some merch to give away. I have a budget of $100, and that includes the shipping costs. But as kind of an incentive to do all of this, to play along, I am obviously speaking off the cuff, which means I will inevitably make mistakes. So if you catch me in one and have a correction to make, I will give you merch for that. So I am encouraging you to correct me. Normally I just take a swig every time somebody corrects me, but for at least until I run out of budget for the giveaway, I will be giving away those. So. And I just realized I should have been wearing merch in order to. I'm not wearing my merch. That's kind of dumb. Hold on, I should go and fix that real quick. I'll be back in just a second. I have it sitting in the other room, and I just realized I'm not wearing it. I'll be back. Hold on. Boop. Okay, now I'm wearing the crop. I forgot what I was wearing. But yeah, so I have merch to give away. For instance, this is a T-shirt that says, by decree of King Richard I. I set up a new. I used to go through Teespring, and now I'm going through Fourth Wall, who actually have like better quality shirts and everything. So yeah, can either have this or the Bigots Get Banned one, where it has where it looks like that. Yes, I have a poster of it on the wall. And the poster actually now looks even better than that. That's from Teespring, but the new one actually has like a better color scheme. And better printing quality. Those are, by the way, these are all made. I always try to shout them out. Is made by these were designed by Bertie Blake. So if you want to know where I got these from, I paid them for the right to be able to have them on to sell them as merch and everything. But so if you are able to catch me in a mistake during this stream, put it in the comments here, and I will. And I can see both the comments on both Twitch and YouTube. Yes, this is also being streamed on Twitch. I see that there's only 2 viewers on there, so there's 110 on YouTube and then 2 on Twitch. But there will be definitely some mistakes since I'm doing this all off the top of my head, and I'm basically going to have to react to stuff that is about all of American history. So if you catch me in a mistake, shout it out, and I will send you some merch. I have a budget of $100 to do so, call it out. So I figured since Twitter was the one where I got the most responses, and I see people were talking about King, and I don't see him here. Hello there, Yank Dylan, the one of 3 people on there. But and saying history is made by the winners? No, absolutely not. Anyways, I actually have an episode about that. So already have something from Super Chat. So founding fathers are so overrated, and the radical Republicans during the 1860s deserve more cred. I'm not going to be reacting to like the comment hot takes, but a lot of them are about like evaluation, and I don't know. I'm not really one of those people who are about like ranking historical figures. Like it's just not really something I care about. The like whether or not whether or not the founding fathers are overrated is like I don't care. They're an integral part of American myth, and so like how can something be overrated if it's such an integral part? So yeah, I'm gonna try to avoid those, but I will try to answer any super chats. And we already have another super chat. Hot tech, we would have been better off remaining a part of England. Slavery, actually, there's one that is like the exact opposite of this opinion. That's like reacting to this, which is funny. But the whole idea that like slavery would have ended earlier is kind of questionable. Just because England ended it in 1833 doesn't mean that they would have done so with the United States, what is now the United States, being part of it. So a lot of these hot takes are kind of like, this would have happened, and I'm going to be basically just sitting here like, look, there's a lot of different ways history could have gone. Like one of the 5 C's of history is contingency, and understanding that contingencies happen, that things could have been differently than they were, doesn't mean that they would be different. Those are very different things, and it's hard to tell what would have happened if America remained in the British Empire, because the American colonies had already been making a huge difference in terms of British politics by the time of our separation in 1776, and really not fully separated until the war ended in 1783. But in either case, like it's something like a good third of all British law from the 1860s to the 1870s were completely about the American colonies. One third. That is an insane amount of influence. So saying that like the way that the British Empire developed would have been the way it developed with America still included, probably not. Probably not at all. So that doesn't really work. Um, yeah, as Tyler says, no determinism here. um, so, um, the got a whole bunch of these to go through, and I'm going to be trying to skip through some, but you can already tell that like a lot of it is going to be about like trying to restrain those wishful thoughts, because a lot of this comes from like wishful thinking. And we already have. I'm going to be answering super chats this whole time, aren't I? Because we already have another super chat. So Still Alive says, I don't know if this is a hot take, but you often hear this, that America was the only country founded on an idea. Is that true or a myth? I uh I don't really know if you can call taxation without representation as an idea. It's a fundamental right. Yeah, like that's the I mean, you could say uh that rights are positive, as in like they're that they are created by men to by mankind, and we just make it up as we go along, which I'd say is a more realistic way of viewing it. But even in the Declaration of Independence, uh Thomas Jefferson was very clearly trying to invoke natural rights, that these were discovered rather than made. um so uh that we have a natural right to X, Y, and Z. Specifically, taxation with representation. Um, and I don't, and I can think of plenty of other countries that have, been founded on protesting something. Um, I mean, think about just the amount of places that started on a revolution, like France. Although France is on her fifth republic. Hello, King. Meow. You gonna join us? No, he wants to go look out the window. um, I brought kitty treats just in case he decides to be friendly. Um, but yeah, I don't really know if you could say that the U.S. was founded on an idea. Um, you could say it was founded on like a whole ideology, but so is France. Um, Although the current French Republic was founded by a coup in 1964 or something like that, when Charles de Gaulle couped himself, um, and created the Fifth Republic. So France is actually a lot newer than you'd think. But like, yeah, I don't really think that holds up, say for like revolutions, and there's a lot of revolutions. The U.S. is nowhere close to the only one. Um, the just think of like China. You know, China's founded on the CCP, and like that's an ideology. Uh, it's Marxism with Chinese characteristics, I mean communism with Chinese characteristics, as Mao liked to call it. No, I think that was Deng. I think that was Deng Xiaoping who said that. But in either case, yeah, no, I don't think that holds up at all. So let's start with Facebook in terms of the hot takes, shall we? Well, obviously done a couple through super chats. But hold on a second. Boop. There we go. So this is how I did it. It was a month ago that I asked for everybody's hot takes, and we'll see how weird they get. I reserve the right to just skip over a bunch because there's a lot. We have a lot to get through. I mean, the one on Twitter is like just an absolute ton. I could just keep scrolling, you know, like it. It's that long, as you can see. Oh, did I hit the bottom? I hit the bottom. Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, as you can see, there's just tons. But that's why we'll get to Twitter last. Who uses Facebook? So well, this person, David M. Pruss, oh, hello, King. Hold on a second. Let's say hello to King. Hi there. Come here. Come here. Hi there. You want some kitty treats? You want some kitty treats? Yeah. Kitty treats. Hey. Oh, he's excited. I normally get him to jump for these. There we go. But normally he's on the ground and I'm standing. Anyways, he's a good boy. Yeah. So, Prusa, I think, commented a whole bunch of times. So we're just going to go with the first one for him. So the national stance on religion was always meant to be secular pluralism, respecting individual rights of faith without infringement of others. I mean, that's not really a hot take. That's just like the definition. Oh, hello. You want more? You want more? But like that's not a hot take. That's just like literally what the First Amendment means. You want it? You want it? Yeah, there you go. Good boy. Good boy. Yeah, so the First Amendment is pretty clear that it's about the separation of church and state is. It doesn't say separation of church and state. That's actually from a Thomas Jefferson letter, but it's kind of copying a Bill of Rights that Thomas Jefferson wrote for the state of Virginia. So even though he didn't have anything to do with the drafting of the Constitution, he did kind of have indirect influence through the kind of copying his language from his Virginia Bill of Rights. It's also directly referencing the English Bill of Rights, which kind of has that as well. Though the English Bill of Rights is much more about like if you're a Protestant and it's very clearly like a specific kind of religion, they disenfranchised non-Trinitarians and Jews and Catholics. And I think for them it wouldn't be until the 19th century that all three of those would gain some sort of rights. So not exactly a good precedent there. But the whole point of the First Amendment was very much about Congress shall make no law, no establishment of religion. So yeah, that's just kind of the truth. That's not a hot take. So what's behind the door? Are you asking about the door behind me? That's my front door. That's just my front door. um, the like you can kind of tell, like, this is the outside right here. Hello, King. Hi, yes, you're very cute. So let's go to whoop. Um, let's go to here and see the next one is John Borninski, who says Thomas Jefferson was a great president and is often underrated. You see what I'm talking about? Where a lot of these are about evaluation and like not really my kind of not really my cup of tea. Um, and honestly, I don't think he's underrated at all. Like, he's one of the founding fathers. Like, there was a comment just earlier saying, that the founding fathers are too overrated. I don't know. That's not really like. I certainly was taught about him. He wasn't a presidency that we skipped in high school. So if he got mentioned in high school, then obviously he was of note. So yeah, Dave Bruce was he commented a lot, didn't he? But we already handled one of his, so let's go to Joseph Pascone or Pasconi. I don't know how to say. I'm guessing Pascone, but maybe that's Italian. Anyways, saying American communists were a force for good, and without the civil rights movement, you guys can't see it, but King is like slapping. He's trying to open the treats. He really wants some treats. Look at that. Woo, woo. Okay, here. You're being cute. There we go. There we go. Yeah, good boy. I'll hide this a little better so that he doesn't try to get at it. Sorry, it was being too cute. I can't help myself. Anyways, American communists were a force for good, and without them, the civil rights movement and workers' rights movements would not have been as powerful or effective. Now, I am not going to try to argue one way or the other about would, but it is true that the American communists were actually very effective organizers in the early 20th century. Not so much after World War II, especially after the Taft. Shoot, it's called the Taft 1948 Act. Taft-Hartley. After the Taft-Hartley Act, which basically banned any communists from being organizers for any nationally recognized unions, for them to be recognized by the National Labor Relations Board. They had to eliminate any open communists. So after that point, communists were not very effective, because that was kind of the main reason why they were. Well, but like, the Hello, thank you, good boy. But they had to eliminate a lot of that. I would also point out that really communist labor organizing was most effective in the teens, 20s, and 30s. But like socialist in general, not just communist, but socialist labor organizing was extremely effective in the 19th century as well, like with the Knights of Labor, who were basically a socialist movement. the Knights of Labor was kind of the most effective union ever. Um, Up until like the Petrograd Soviet, which eventually became the USSR. Um, but like the you know the Knights of Labor was one of the largest labor organizations ever, and was extremely effective until it got broken up during the 1877 Great Western Railroad strike. Um, I've been thinking about doing an episode about like labor history. The problem is it's just not my topic, and it's such a wide-ranging topic than to just focus in on like one union or anything. But there's a great book called Strike. It's just called Strike, and good one to see how effective communists were, especially even when they were being attacked through the first Red Scare. By the second Red Scare, they weren't much of a force whatsoever, though. So, on to the next one. The Mexican-American War was the most decisive event of 19th century North America. We're still feeling its effects today. I mean, I live in New Mexico, so yeah, that's definitely true in the Southwest. And considering California is part of the Southwest and California is the most powerful state, yeah, that's kind of understatement. But I wouldn't. Oh, hello. He wants them treats so bad. Come here. Come here. Ah, he wants more treats. You got 3 treats already. And you didn't even have to chase anything for it. Normally I give him treats when he's playing real hard. But I would point out that, the Civil War that followed it, and kind of an effect of it. The Civil War was fought over the expansion of slavery into the new territories, right? So, like, that was the Mexican American War caused the Civil War. So you could say, it was one of the most uh, decisive events, because also the Civil War is kind of weird because even though the North won, the South kind of won the peace. Like Reconstruction failed. Um, so like obviously we didn't have slavery afterwards, but Jim Crow came, and like there was plenty of horror that came with that situation as well. As opposed to the Mexican American War, it's very clearly like this is the lines. You know, so I don't know. Depends on your definition of decisive, I guess. What does decisive mean? So it's an interesting take. Not a bad one. Let's go down here to the goddess from Andy House. The goddess Columbia should be back on our money, and In God We Trust removed. Ooh. I kind of agree. Like, have you guys ever heard "Hail Columbia"? That was our original national anthem. It was such a better song, you know. And the whole "In God We Trust" thing came up in the 1950s under Eisenhower, who got. It's Eisenhower's fault that we have all that "In God We Trust" stuff on our money and whatnot. But I will point out it didn't used to have the goddess Columbia spelled with 3 S's. Oops. But what used to be on our money was "E pluribus unum," or unum. I don't know. I'll just pronounce that. Like, I kind of would prefer e pluribus unum, like out of one all, like that is such a better phrase. Plus it has that kind of Latin gravitas. Um so oh, uh good take. uh oh yeah, and I should say the whole "In God We Trust" thing, it's specifically like trying to attack communism, like because communists are all atheists, which dumb. Um, but in fact, speaking of the national anthem, that was a Christian communist or Christian socialist. Like it was written. I mean, not that's Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. The whole and they added "In God We Under God" to that, and like it's supposed to be defeating the evil socialists and all that. It's like it was written by a socialist, a Christian socialist. You're just playing into his hands. um I always love that when people try to make it out to be like anti-communist. It's like, well, you're just wrong. Eisenhower was just plain wrong. um okay, I have to put this one out by Lane Gentry. uh yes, that should like Battle Hymn of the Republic is like the best. Like, and it even has that like religious imagery, like uh my favorite lyric of it is as he died to make men equal, let us die to make men free. Like that's a hell of a song. um so on to the next one. Let's see here. So Elizabeth Vilchus, I don't know how to say that. Oh, I know what this is. This is a really bad take. This is one of those people who think that like, oh, it's bad to say America and not refer to both continents. Piss off with that. That's bad. That's a dumb take. We speak English, not your made up language. But let's see here. Matthew Vod. Yeah, I'm gonna stop trying to say that name. Smedley Butler and Ike were right about the military-industrial complex. Butler wasn't really talking about the military-industrial complex. Those are his whole war as a racket thing is kind of different. When two military men, both generals, say there is an issue with mixing warfare and business, something is up, even if Ike fell into the trap with Iran and Central America. Yeah, the whole speech from Ike at his farewell speech about the military-industrial complex is extremely hypocritical, like extremely hypocritical. He resided over the consolidation of military manufacturing throughout the late 50s. This is the main component of the military-industrial complex, and he made it. Like, he's responsible for it. So coming out at the end of it and being like, hey, you gotta be careful with this stuff that I did. It's kind of like how Washington, when he did his farewell speech, and he talked about like how you guys need to stop with this factionalism stuff. It's like, dude, you've been siding with the Federalists the whole time. You don't get to complain about factionalism when you were doing it. But like the it's the same thing. Right? It's like you don't get to complain about the military-industrial complex when you created it. Um, with Smedley Butler, on the other hand, was more. He's kind of an interesting case. I've grown more annoyed with that book, War is a Racket, over time because it has a lot of unsubstantiated rumors and that basically conspiracism, some of which turned out to be outright false as the Nye Committee investigated it. But like the this stuff was nobody really he was dealing with a very weird time because at the time he had just supposedly thwarted a coup by fascists. um Although we only have his word to go off of, there's actually no substantiation beyond his word, and he did it as like a news broadcast. It would be like Alex Jones coming out and being like, I just defeated a fascist takeover of the government. That's basically what Smedley Butler did, but like except for he was, a Marine general, well decorated one. He had 2 medals of honor actually, although one of them he really wanted to be rescinded. Um, but um, yeah, I think I think it takes a lot more nuance than just what both of those what that book and that speech actually proffer. They to complain about just how wars are started by the military industrial complex, you're flat out wrong to begin with, if that's what you're arguing. Um, Otherwise, it's just kind of scary boogeyman that doesn't really deal with reality. Um, so next, uh, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the comments as well. There's a lot of them coming in. uh, just trying to trying to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, cool. I've already done the super chats. Good. So on to Gregory Engelberg. I think I actually said that correctly. Hello, King. So Engelberg says the reason why America is great is due to our diversity. Yeah, I mean it's up to us to decide that, right? And there's certainly an entire political faction that thinks exactly the opposite. But diversity is strength and all that kind of stuff. You hear it all the time. But this is another one of those like evaluation things that is like, I don't know. I don't really know. So Brian Cole Morgan, says U.S. involvement in World War I was a direct contributor to the radicalization of post-war Germany and the inevitability of a second Great War. So that's an interesting take. I'm going to find a lot of argument about it because what Brian is referring to, of course, is the Treaty of Versailles that labeled a kind of a harmful piece on Germany and massive reparations payments, which they didn't actually pay off until the 21st century. Funny enough, but and you can argue that all the economic turmoil and during the 1920s and that was kind of like a direct result, but one, World War II is not just Germany. It wasn't caused just by Germany. You cannot forget Japan, and Japan was an ally of the United States in World War I. Um, like we literally had soldiers fight side by side against Soviets in Siberia, uh, with the Empire of Japan. Um, so you know, that's kind of missing a large picture and putting too much impetus on the rise of fascism on one particular aspect of fascist uh, fear mongering after the war. Especially the whole stab in the back myth. Um, the like it's a little too heavy handed to blame the Second World War on the Treaty of Versailles. Like direct contributor, yes, but there's a larger picture you're missing there. Damon Johnson says, I apparently have replied to this, I don't remember. America's great social and economic retrenchment correlate well with the ideological and theocratic revival periods. But no, I want to see what my reply was. What? It's not letting me see my reply. Let me see my reply. This is a bit of a mess of a comment. I'm going to skip this one. So let's go on to Mike Baker, who says General Robert E. Lee was an overrated general of the Civil War who couldn't keep up with many of the younger officers in the Union. He also committed a few strategic blunders to prioritize defense of his home state. Many of his great victories during the war had no real strategic value to the Confederacy. I would definitely disagree with the last statement. The last statement kind of forgets that Chancellorsville and the Antietam was an invasion. I'm forgetting the other major victory in the South. Hold on a second. Let me pull up my it. I'm literally doing this lecture this week in my class, and I am forgetting the different battles. But luckily, I have my lecture right here. Hold on a second. Let me pull it up. So, yeah, Bull Run, obviously. Well, that's not really Lee. But Chancellorsville is definitely a major victory for the South, and that kept the North from being able to take over the South's capital in Richmond, which Richmond is not that far away from D.C. So, yeah, this was a whole bunch of different battles, and Robert E. Lee was very effective at defense. So I wouldn't so much make the claim that he didn't have that his great victories didn't have strategic value. Even towards the end of the war, where it's very obvious that he's going to lose, he managed to play a cat and mouse game with Grant, all while Petersburg is going on. So he's not a bad general. He's just not particularly good at offense. He kept on losing. He lost at Antietam and he lost at Gettysburg, and those were kind of the decisive moments where it turned out that he wouldn't be able to make it a difference. So, yeah, and in terms of being able to keep up with younger officers, I don't even know what that means. So, finally got to. Oh, nope, that is the last of them. Cool. Got all the way through. Did somebody correct me and I missed the And thank you, Jared. What do you mean he was more of a Texan? Well, just because he was living in Texas doesn't make him a Texan. Like, he was an army officer. Um, like that just you end up going all over the place, especially during the antebellum period, where you end up going around. You end up having to put down little rebellions everywhere. I mean, think it was in Virginia that he had his like kind of major military victory prior to the war, which was against John Brown in Virginia, what would eventually become West Virginia, Harper's Ferry, but like that was Virginia, so he was defending his state then. So he obviously was very much a Virginian. Um, so um, did I miss anybody correcting me at all? Um, if somebody did correct me, please let me know. I have merch to give out. Got merch. Um, well, let's move on to threads then. Um, so I do have a Threads account if you're on there and want to follow me. Um, and I think we only have a couple because Threads is still tiny. um, so uh, so let's see here. First one is from Calretetti. Calretetti. uh, problem with Threads is that they make you from Bob Cunningham apparently. Threads is weird. You'll get it stride eventually. So he says the presidency was a mistake. We should have been better off with a prime minister as head of state. I don't like what's the difference? um I think what you mean is like that we elect a president, whereas prime ministers are typically not elected. That you actually choose the party, and the prime minister is chosen from that party. So I don't know, the that that just is a different word for the same thing. President just means presiding officer. That's literally all it means. Um, so you'd have to qualify that statement quite a bit more. Um, so it, Eric Rosick says it might have been better for everyone if we let the Soviets have Afghanistan. Commun Islamism, really? That's not a good way to put it. But yeah, I actually don't disagree with this, but I disagree with the phrasing here. That's not a good way of phrasing it. Um, but yeah, I don't really see why we needed to support the Mujahideen. The whole point was to be a thorn in the side of the Soviets, but like they could have just done it on their own. We didn't need to support them on that. Um, Saudi Arabia was providing plenty of funding too. So on to Blue Sky. Blue Sky is. I also have a Blue Sky account. You can see the thing right here. Um, and I guess we're still talking about the whole prime minister thing. um, what is Blue Sky? Blue Sky is like an alternative to Twitter, basically. It's now completely open. It used to be invite only, but now it's completely open. So, I actually prefer it to Twitter, but there's just not a lot of people on there yet. Um, so let's go with the first one from Bernie Sandworms, saying the Dakotas should only be one state. Oh, them's fighting words. Oh, don't say that in either the Dakotas. they are angry with each other all the time and like for no reason. there's like there's like nothing really in terms of that rivalry, but like just the name. But like my parents were in South Dakota for a little bit, and I have a friend who has a lot of family in North Dakota, and like they could get go back and forth on it. It's real funny. Um, but honestly, there's not much of a difference between the two states, so I actually kind of agree. Like, there's no reason for those to be separate states. Um, while you're consolidating it, also put Nebraska in there too. Just make it, Dakota and Nebraska. Or combine Nebraska with Kansas. Yeah, combine Nebraska with Kansas, um, and Wyoming with Montana. Boom. Bunch of problems solved right there. And I wonder how many people would just be. I'm guessing we don't have anybody from the Dakotas right now. Uh, one of the Dakotas should rename itself to True Dakota. Well, that would have to be North Dakota, obviously. The True Dakota. uh, how did we manage to make this about Korea? Uh, rivalry. Rivalry is the opiate of the masses. um, but let's go on to the next one. The we don't want. Hey, I managed to piss off somebody. Yes. But really, I mean, come on. Montana is not a substantial enough state to. I mean, Wyoming is not a substantial enough state, and Montana could govern it just fine. All right, so Mr. West says, I can't quite remember the question I asked my AP students. Something like, how did the American Civil War contribute to a national identity? And a student responded with, because of the need to feed so many soldiers, the meatpacking industry rose, and that's why we have hot dogs. I mean, hot dogs wouldn't be a thing for quite a while after the Civil War. That's just funny. Although the meatpacking industry did very much benefit from the Civil War. Like the Texas cattle trade basically arose because of the war and that turned into a whole thing. Prior to that, it was more about like where you could drive the cattle, but like refrigeration really got started during the Civil War because of the Civil War. So yeah, I mean, like students not wrong on the first half, just Obviously not correct about hot dogs. That's fun. Um, Suck it, Sinclair. I wonder if that could be considered a niche joke. I that might be too niche for some people, but they just need to know what the jungle is. Um, Anyways, uh, and uh, hold on, did I miss a super chat? Oh, I guess I'm. Oh, okay. So, Jared, you you didn't put the thing in the actual in the super chat. That's why I wasn't responding because it's not in the super chat. Um, so now I have to go back and find where you actually even made that comment. I guess this. How Singapore, a third world country with race riots in the 1950s, overtook the U.S. with a GDP per. I don't know. I don't know anything about Singapore, man. Like, definitely not my topic. I don't know. This isn't a comparative history thing. This is about American history only. Um, I yeah, I couldn't tell you. Yeah. Anyways, uh, as Clint Hauser says, the only nominally good thing Reagan did in his 8 years in the White House was spin the Soviet Union into bankruptcy. I would argue he didn't really do that. Uh, for instance, you can look at Soviet military spending. That's world military. Can I just get the Soviets? That that's definitely not the Soviets. That's since the Soviet Union. Yeah, so you can kind of see that there wasn't actually much of an uptick in spending um, during the Reagan years. You could see that it basically was the same as it was prior to detente. Um, so, and actually lower than what it was prior to detente. Detente came in 1971, by the way. Um, and also, I don't know which chart is which. I'm guessing red means Soviet. Although, like, yeah, okay, so here's an even better chart. This is the one I mostly was thinking of. It had already risen before Reagan. See? It barely it barely rose during Reagan. So, Clinton, that's not exactly true. Reagan was not responsible for their military expenditure. What was their invasion of Afghanistan in 1978. Um, as you can see right here. Very clear buildup in expenditure, and then it just barely rose because ongoing war. Um, and yeah, and then it even went down during Reagan's presidency. So it's not true, like at all that Reagan made the Soviets spin themselves into oblivion. That just isn't true. Um, so uh, let's see here. Got to make sure I'm keeping up. By the way, the funny thing is, I've kind of softened on my view of Chernobyl. It, I was just really pissed off when I watched the show, liked it so much, and then felt like I'd been fooled when I went and researched it. When I researched it, was there were all these problems, and you can't blow up a freaking a water reservoir it's with freaking radiation that. Just it doesn't work, and freaking radiation is not contagious either. Like there's some distinct problems with it that I was mad that I was fooled by. So that was more me angry that I was fooled into believing lies. So we're finally on to. Have I not been? Can I know, Tyler? I asked my mods to make sure that if somebody was correcting me, that to point them out. Has there been anybody correcting me yet? Have I made any mistakes yet? Surely I've made some mistakes. So, well, we got a lot more to go through, because that was just the other social networks. On Twitter, this thread blew up. I mean, this had 113 112, since gotta take away the one that I was just saying I liked all it. But 112 hot takes. So, He's just no, you're perfect in every way. I've made some pronunciation mistakes. Okay, I don't care much about pronunciation, to be honest. So many. Oh, and also, Soma's Academy, you guys should subscribe. But also, I just don't care about pronunciation much anymore. It can be annoying, but at the same time, people trying to correct you are even more annoying, right? Especially when they're wrong. The sheer amount of times people tell me I've mispronounced something and I got it correct is amazing. But but alas, the realms of what do you mean? I'm looking at the Twitch stuff too, Alan. You just got to understand that there is. Oh, okay. Hold on a second, Alan. You corrected me on the. What did I get wrong on the Battle Hymn of the Republic? I missed that one. Realize that I see just all the comments and comment. Well, I think I could just go over to Twitch. Hold on. Let me not share this. There we go. Let's see here. Let's see. Correction. As he died to make men holy, we will die. So that's not exactly a correction, because there are multiple versions of the song. I said, "Let us die to men free." That was that's how I've always sung it. Yeah, there are many versions of that song. And that's a minor thing. So yeah, I'm more looking for if I screw up a date, or get the wrong name or something like that. Oh, no worries, man. No worries. The point is that that you're at least looking for those corrections. I didn't see it because something that you guys can't exactly see is just, I'll kind of point it out here, is that you can see there's just a ton of comments that I have to go through. So it's hard to keep up. And Punk says pronunciation only really matters on names. Everything else is just classist, racist things to separate people. uh, but um, yeah, and even on names like, God, I remember when I screwed up the name Brezhnev, and so many people were angry with me because I pronounced it Brezhnev. It's literally that minor of a difference. Brezhnev, Brezhnev. That's it. And also in English we don't have a zh. Like that. That's not a phoneme in English. So like I can do it just fine, but like the shouldn't be mad if an English speaker can't do a thing that the English doesn't do, you know? Um oh, maybe I shouldn't correct myself. just like be like, "Oh, that's a mistake," and then just like wait for somebody to actually say it. uh Well, you could be in the video anyways. There you go. Now you're on screen. So, let's go on here and see. Doubting Derek says, there is little reason to believe that the slaves and the natives would have been that much better off if the British won the Revolutionary War. So, I was saying that there was a direct response to a previous comment. Let me see if I can pull it up. Because it automatically stars any of them. Yeah, here it is. So these are like directly contradictory statements. If you look at them, they're you know, one is contradicting the other. And both of them are just kind of like would've, although uh, you know, this one's a little more reasonable because it's not saying that things would have been that way. It's saying we don't have reason to believe this, um, which is a more verifiable statement. But luckily, I've already covered it with that previous comment. So, let's see here. Oh, we got a blue check mark. Uh-oh. Um, America was, Little Congo says, America was more technologically advanced than the Germans at all points in the war. I'm guessing you're referring to World War II, not World War One, or the Samoa conflict, because World War One's not the first time we directly fought Germany. We fought Germany in Samoa. But I'm guessing you're referring to World War II, and that's a matter of conjecture. Clearly, we won the war, but the standard argument is through just better production standards. But I'll point out that we're the only ones who developed the bomb. And mind you, even though the bombs were dropped on Japan, they were originally intended for Germany. Like, that was the whole point of the Manhattan Project, was to defeat Germany, because Germany had their own nuclear program and we were behind for sure. So that is verifiably false. Then that the Germans were were less technologically advanced, because the Germans were already experimenting with refining uranium um, by the time that we joined the war. So clearly that's false on the face of it. But I think you're more referring to like tanks and all that, and that's just kind of like it's six in one hand and half a dozen in the other. Uh, so just from the same person, I guess I'll do two from the same person. Reconstruction was a complete failure, allowing the treacherous Confederates leading to ultimate win. That's just true. That's not a hot take. um, oh, here's Tyler's. Actually pulled this one for the thumbnail. Uh, and yeah, so I'm fully on board with this take. Like, Tyler's correct. Like, she is referring to the fact that, like, there are a lot of people who are really like, try to blame the Great Depression on Hoover, and specifically that, like, he worsened it by doing the tariff, by raising the tariff. Now I would say that possibly spread the depression, but our depression was caused by and I'll get to your comment in just a bit, still alive. But the our depression actually kind of started after the British had their own um, market collapse earlier that month. So I think Hoover gets far too much blame for using what were standard economic tools at the time. People seem to forget that the Great Depression, not Great Depression, the Depression of 1920 through 22 or something like that. Here's one. Whoever can correct me on that one. uh, Whatever that depression was in the early 20s, uh, was kind of defeated by raising tariffs. The Republicans came into power. Harding raised tariffs, started paying for, like, soup kitchens and all that kind of stuff through that tariff, and um and defeated that depression through raising tariffs. So, like, the typical thing about, like, uh uh the typical thing about, like, Hoover uh being at fault for the depression is just false on the face of it. He also started doing a lot of programs that were kind of like proto New Deal programs. He had I this is another thing you guys can correct me on, but he I'm forgetting the names of each program, and I'm going to purposely not look them up so that somebody can correct me. Uh, but he had a loan program that set up specifically so that companies that would maintain a certain level of employment would be able to get federally backed loans. Uh, but this was a voluntary program, whereas the New Deal would basically force a lot of businesses to go into that and create the whole FIC. Uh, and that so um, he he was as comrade comrade Catpernicus says, he did too little too late. Yeah, and that's about the most like substantive criticism of Hoover. The one thing that everybody seems that I find unforgivable about Herbert Hoover's administration was his handling of the bonus army. His handling of the bonus army is just unforgivable. That was an atrocity. So, that is is and that's his fault. Oh, and I think Tyler got the correct name. Emergency Relief Construction Act. Is that correct? Let's look. Now that we have a name, let's look it up. Yep, that's it. But you can also see July of 1932. Yeah. There's also another one. If somebody else, Tyler, I will write down your name real quick so that I can send you out some merch. Hold on, gotta pull up the notes. But there was also something called like the presidential Reconstruction firm or something like that. If anybody can figure that one out, you'll get some free merch. I don't want to look it up right now. But yeah, his handling of the bonus army was deplorable. So, and also, the best Roosevelt is Eleanor, and it's not even close. Look, I still have a soft spot for Teddy. Like, Teddy's he's so cool, but like he's also a complete asshole. But yeah, Eleanor's like kind of like she didn't really do anything wrong ever. So like just by meeting the bare minimum of being a good person, just means that she's better than all the other Roosevelts. Hey, oh yeah, Kermit. Kermit was great. He died in World War One. Freaking, he did nothing wrong. Also, another thing about Herbert Hoover that I'm kind of a big fan of is his work as Secretary of the Interior, and how he kind of engineered the entire Southwest in terms of water rights and everything. Now, I think the Colorado River Compact needs to be renegotiated because, the Southwest is a very different place than it was back in 1922. But like, the creation of the Hoover Dam is kind of like an integral part of just my life. I grew up in Las Vegas, so it wasn't Kermit. Which one was it? Peyton? Who was it? See, there we go. Can have another one right there. And also, old Gus, I think, got the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. I think that's it. Hold on. Reconstruction. Yep. So, old Gus, you're getting some. Hit me up on DMs for me to send you out a T-shirt. And also, who was it? If it wasn't Kermit, who was the one? Uh, Peyton. uh, I don't see the answer here. I know there was one who died in World War One. Oh, it's Quentin. Wait, who was the first one who said Quentin? I'm trying to see who was the first one to say Quentin. Oh, okay, yeah. So, Rosen Germain, you're getting a T-shirt as well. Let me write that down. Cool. Managed to get 3 corrections on one freaking thing. And I didn't even get to finish the whole thing I wanted to talk about Hoover, and I'll be getting to the super chats, guys. Don't worry. I will be getting to those super chats. And hello, Tiger Star. So I now have 3 super chats to get to because I just went on a whole thing about Herbert Hoover. Thanks, Tyler. She knows exactly what to say to get me to go off on a tirade, I guess. But another thing that kind of shifted my view about Hoover was actually his post-presidency, because I would argue that Hoover was our first Californian president. When he was elected, he was in California. He was a Stanford, Stanford. Stanford, yes, Leland Stanford. Duh. Well, Leland Stanford Jr. They named it after their dead son. Anyways, he was a Stanford professor at the time. And after his presidency, he created a library there. So if you go to like basically any pictures of Stanford, just come on, give me a pic. Shockley, that guy's terrible. Oh, come on, let me see Hoover Tower. There we go. So this has become like kind of a symbol for Stanford, but this is Hoover Tower. This is actually the library tower, although they have like a separate building now for most of the library and the facilities. And this is kind of like the beating heart of conservatism. I'm not even joking. Like this is actually kind of like the first conservative think tank, and Hoover created it. It's named for him, and because he was a Stanford professor and all that. And like he became really anti-New Deal after losing the election and everything. So he basically created this as like to overthrow the New Deal, which was eventually successful. One person who was kind of the first to do anything about dismantling the New Deal had actually gotten money for campaigns directly from the Hoover Institute in order to run for his election. He was the second California president, Richard M. Nixon. And guess what? The third president had gotten direct campaign funds from. Well, Ronald Reagan, who was like really who basically got elected on dismantling the New Deal. So the Hoover Institute is like the beating heart of conservatism, and it is like the first conservative think tank in the U.S., and it is still kind of like the beating heart of like intellectual conservatism. And it's like such it's such a kind of clear note where people are like, oh, universities are freaking, lefty liberal, enclaves in that. The Hoover Institute. Tell me that the Hoover Institute is a lefty liberal enclave. But yeah, so big long rant on that. Managed to get me going on there, Tyler. So I have a bunch of super chats to answer, so I'll go with them chronologically. Um, so first was still alive. Sorry it took so long. Do you think? Do you think of, maybe you meant like, what do you think of President Calvin Coolidge as a good president? He's often well regarded on the right, and I notice. I actually think he was a great president. Um, he's basically just like ran the government well, you know. Um, what's interesting about Coolidge is that, one, he didn't get elected initially. He came to the presidency through the death of Harding, and he was just kind of like a middle manager, you know. Like he just he liked to micromanage everything, but he did so with efficiency and you know with regard to just making sure the government ran well, which it did. Um, so like that's all I really want to see out of a president. So like this is kind of actually a conservative talking point, that I don't want to see a more vigorous president, but I like some vigorous presidents. Obviously, I do like Teddy, um, and I like Ike. Actually, I'd say Ike was the last good president. Um, but like, although I was throwing some serious shade at him earlier, but you know, if you can't criticize your heroes, what are you doing? Um, but like, yeah, I'd say Calvin Coolidge was a good president. Like, genuinely, before Ike, I mean, like Truman's kind. I don't. There's a lot of things that Truman did that I dislike, but he, as like a president, he was surprisingly good. But otherwise, you know, FDR and Hoover have such significant problems that I wouldn't consider them good presidents. Whereas Coolidge just didn't do anything wrong, you know. Then Christian Nipolas. I'm sure I'm screwing that up bad. So Christian says, Carolyn Bryant, the woman who accused Emmett Till of whistling at her, never recanted her story. That's not a hot take or anything. That's just the truth. Yeah. She only died recently, if I remember correctly. She like fairly like really recently. Um, so yeah, but yeah, that's not a hot take or anything. That's just the truth. Oh, and for those who don't know, Emmett Till was a teenager, black teenager who was accused of whistling at Carolyn Bryant, that Carolyn Bryant accused him of at, and then a bunch of good old boys like freaking, you know, roped him at the back of a truck, dragged him around town, absolutely brutalized his body, and threw him over a bridge to hang. So this was a horrible lynching. But what made it particularly important is that his mother actually had like the casket open and like showed her son's body in the north, because he was from the north. I think Chicago or something like that. Somebody could correct me. But he but the act of showing it really intensified scrutiny on the Klan. So it was an incredibly important part of the civil rights movement. And Carolyn Bryant never recanting her story is still kind of like a thorn in the side of the Till family. So Tiger Star says, Phoenix is a monument to man's arrogance and must be destroyed. Peggy Hill, as in like the Hill from like King of the Hill. Um, but like, I don't disagree. um, the like it is. I have like for anybody who has been to Phoenix, it is like the worst city in the Southwest. I don't like Albuquerque, but I hate Phoenix even more. Um, like it is the armpit of the Southwest. It is the worst city in the Southwest, and that's including places like Oakland. Actually, Oakland's been pretty well gentrified recently. Um, but like, um, and Tiger Shadow says it is from King of the Hill. Um, but like, the weirdest thing, there's not any like kind of main industry in Phoenix that's driving the population boom there. They have a total of something like 4 million people, so it's actually quite a massive city, and yet the they don't have like a central reason for being. Um, and obviously, I'm not talking about like the just the city limits itself, but like the metro area is like 4 million people. And here's the thing: they get Arizona gets, I think it's 40%. This is one that I should look up. Hold on a second. Colorado River Compact. Let me look it up. Because we were talking about the Colorado River Compact, and I was saying that we need to like renegotiate that. This is why. Um, so, uh, for those who don't know, there's Phoenix, there's the Colorado River. So just think about how, I mean, you can actually see just from this picture, like how much the Phoenix area is, how big that is. All the kind of pinkish purple there is city, like that's all city right there. Um, and what you can see here, yeah. So I was almost right on the money. 37.3% of the lower Colorado River is given to Arizona. 37.3%. Every time I see people trying to be like, well, Las Vegas shouldn't exist because there's like no water there. One, it's called Las Vegas. It's literally means the meadows. Like it's built on water. That's the reason why it's there. Um, and two, look at those percentages. Just look at them. Like anytime somebody tries to be like, "Oh, Las Vegas doesn't have water," it only gets 4%. It's functioning on only 4% of the river. If you say that Las Vegas shouldn't exist, Los Angeles shouldn't exist. Los Angeles is taking a heck of a lot more water than that from the Colorado River. Los Angeles is the water sucker, and a close second to that is Phoenix. Phoenix shouldn't exist either before Las Vegas. Las Vegas is actually one of the most water efficient cities in the United States, let alone the world. We actually have some of the most water efficient cities in the world as well. But Las Vegas is perhaps the most water efficient city on Earth. Um, so it's insane that people don't focus on Phoenix for being the water hog that it is. They have lawns and trees everywhere. And it's like, that shouldn't exist. Like, if you're going to have trees, they shouldn't be elms and oaks. They should be more water efficient plants. But they have no concern for water usage in Arizona because they just have this huge helping of the Colorado River. So, yeah, not a fan of the place. It also just sucks. It's hot and annoying. And like Arizona is just a weird place. And we have oh man, there's been three more super chats. Oh boy. It's getting hard to get through all this. So, hold on a second, guys. So, Avatar Mike Phantom says, I'm about to publish a book and my MC, I don't know what MC is JFK Jr. Uh, Can somebody tell me what MC is real quick? Um, in it, he is, main character. Main character. Okay. In it, he is president in 2008 after not dying in 1999. How do you feel modern politics would change if he didn't die and if George Magazine worked? I don't know what George Magazine is. Um, and yeah, it was films that chased the main character. He's talking about like a fiction thing. I don't know what George Magazine is, but if like he had become president instead of Obama, and it wouldn't have been in 2008, it would have been 2009. Would have been elected in 2008. You don't become president until January 20th the following year. But if he was elected in 08, I mean, I just don't know anything about him. To be perfectly frank, he's just not an important political figure. So I don't know. So on with the there's a lot of these. So Patrick Fitzgerald says Arizona losing the Coyotes to Utah is a travesty to hockey. Arizona shouldn't have a hockey team. Nah, I'm perfectly okay with that. But like, I don't care about sports, to be honest. You know, I watched the Super Bowl is the most recent sporting thing I've watched, and I literally only watched it because it was in Las Vegas. That's it. I didn't care about the teams or anything. I picked the 49ers as the one to root for purely because they're named after a date. I'm not even joking. It was literally just because they are named after a date, an important date to my studies as well. But like the yeah, I just don't care about sports. But also screw Arizona. Also, one last one. Here's a question I debated with my dad a bit. This is from Still Alive, by the way. Had JFK lived, do you think he would have escalated in Vietnam like LBJ did? He certainly was intending to. Um, I don't really see that being much different. In fact, I kind of argue exactly that in the Vietnam episode. Like a lot of people try to use one quote of his where he says that he would like to pull out someday as like proof that he was going to do it, but the amount of times that like Bush said that he wanted to get out of Afghanistan doesn't mean that we were getting out of Afghanistan. um like that's just not how the world works. You don't just take an aspirational quote and make it into reality. So yeah, no, I think something along the lines of the Gulf of Tonkin would have happened underneath him as well. It's one of those things where it's a would have, so it can't really say for sure. But like, he clearly would have liked something like the Gulf of Tonkin to happen. So yeah, that's something that a lot of people have like this starry-eyed memory of JFK, whereas the reality is very different. Oh, and I have one more. Daniel Nguyen says Arizona had about 20 years of drought till 2023. Yeah, the whole Southwest did. It wasn't 20 years; it was shorter than that. But yeah, it was a long drought. Um, the but realize drought is not like the end of a like. For some reason, people think that like the Colorado River is just going to dry up. Like, no, it's faced worse droughts than anything in in the last few centuries, and it's still here. Like, it doesn't. Rivers like that don't just dry up. um, no, drought just means less rainfall than is considered normal. That's all drought means. And actually, the worst drought in southwestern history was it wasn't the most recent one. You'll hear the news say that all the time. I've even heard freaking geologists say that, and they should know better. Um, because the worst drought to hit the Southwest was in 1861, far and away, very obvious. I mean, not 1862. Uh, wait, no, I always mix them up. It's either the worst drought was 61 and the worst amount of rainfall was 62, or it's the other way around. I always mix them up. But yeah, like literally the worst amount of rainfall followed the worst drought. I mean, no, I'm pretty sure it's the other way around. It's the Great Flood was 1861, the winter of 1861 and 62, and the Great Drought was 62 to 63. So geologists have rocks for brains. But like, yeah, the worst drought in southwestern history was that. Uh, there was a winter that there was literally no rainfall recorded in Northern California. None for an entire winter. You know how devastating that is? um Yeah, so like every time I hear people say like, "Oh, this is the worst drought," and blah blah blah, it's like you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Then you literally don't know what you're talking about because clearly isn't that. Um, and also like the worst flooding was the year before. So just think how badly desiccated the landscape was. I remember reading about it in San Luis Obispo, where they said that the hills gleamed white with the bones of bleaching cows. The cattle industry kind of died in California because of all of that. Um, if they were in the Central Valley, a bunch of them drowned because like the water was deeper than they could stand. Like the Central Valley basically became a lake for a winter. Um, and then the the following year there was like no water, and so that sudden inflow of water and then suddenly no water meant that the soil just simply could not sustain any kind of foliage. um so that was really bad. um whoop, now managed to have another one. Okay. uh this is from Himmelganger. Himmelganger. um saying JFK is like Titus, because they both had short reigns, died on the job. They both are liked in history. I don't know anything about Titus, honestly. um, let's see here. It's one of the Flavian emperors, succeeded by his father. Oh no, succeeded his father, um, and only ruled for 2 years. Um, Oh, and he defeated the Second Jewish Rebellion. Um, so he kind of caused the Jewish diaspora. So, um, oh no, that's the first Jewish war. The second one is but this is the destruction of the temple. Um, and also oversaw was a ruler when Mount Vesuvius went off. All right, yeah, I don't really know anything about him, but maybe I don't know. I could see that. Especially the whole liked because of being such a short reign. Yeah, that is pretty much what JFK is. Why everybody likes JFK. They put all their hopes and dreams into him rather than facing reality. That's kind of how a lot of people view him. Um, so I think I finally managed to get through. Oh no, there's more. I'm trying to get through all of these. Sorry. Um, so Sebastian M says book recommendations to daydream about the end of the American Empire. Thanks for all the great work. Cheers. Um, I don't know what you mean by daydream about the end of the American Empire. Like, it's here to stay. Puerto Rico's going to become a state, I'm pretty sure. um, and our other protectorates actually want to remain protectorates. Um, so yeah, and that's like literal empire, and we have that. But I think you're just talking about like influence, I guess. Which no, that's not empire. Um, but in terms of just talking about like the ebb and flow of American power, if that's what you're looking for, there's a book that's great about uh, American Small Wars called Savage Peace, and it talks a lot about the I think it's Max Boot, something like that. He's actually a conservative, um, but like a kind of prominent conservative intellectual. But he wrote a great book about the ebb and flow of American power through American Small Wars. Um, Let me see here. America's Wars. I'm just going straight to my bibliography here, but it takes a while to load. Um, yeah, Savage Wars of Peace. That's what it's called. Savage Wars of Peace. I really liked that book. It's from 2002. Um, the no, if that's just in terms of like American Small Wars and understanding the ebb and flow of American policy through these wars. Um, then hold on, I'm trying to think. Just looking through this, and realize this is just a bibliography. None of these are like recommended. I'm just looking for something to recommend. Hold on. Oh, I remember reading this. This was really interesting in terms of looking at like the war on terror in a larger context, all the way back to the 1970s. Um, and so I actually used this for both my Iraq War and Afghanistan War episodes. And so that's Andrew Basovich. I think that's one of two. I've got another book by him. I don't know what it was though. Um, Hey, that's supposed to be in italics. Um, as you can see, I've read a lot on the global war on terror, but it's hard to find stuff that's like particularly good at describing like uh the larger story. Yeah. It's, the Basovich book is probably the best one on the larger story. Uh, so yeah, there's two recommendations for you. Kind of a weird question because it doesn't quite work as an explanation. I should switch back to main view. There we go. And hopefully this will be the last one. Why is World War II such a popular event to be into more so than most other wars / historical events? Because it's the biggest war ever. Um, and it's the most recent big freaking war. Uh, it it touches everything. And it also provides a pretty easy story of good guys and bad guys. Like for the people who are looking for that kind of thing, it's very easy to choose sides on that. Um, but also, uh, it's just the last big war, and it also was the biggest war ever. Um, and so that its effect on us, it's it's impossible to escape. It defines our current era. Um, you know, Modern history is divided into three. There's early modern, high modern, um, and the contemporary era. The contemporary era begins in 1945. So it it defines everything. So like it's hard to escape, and it's really annoying how into it people are. But when you think about it that way, when you think about like its effect on the way we interpret everything, the way we live our lives, um, it's pretty inescapable. Um, so that's the main reason. Um, so I think I could finally get back to um, the Twitter ones. So the next one comes from Soma, saying, "My most nuclear hot take is that the state of Virginia um, is in fact a direct evolution of the Powhatan chiefdom because the tributary relationship that tied the tribes to the paramount chief just shifted to the governor of Virginia in 1646, and tribute payments have continued since. Uh, the tribes of Virginia don't pay tribute to Virginia. Like, if that system was still extant during the American Revolution, after the American Revolution, it certainly ceased by the time that oh, what the heck is his name? Something Lee. But the governor of Virginia during the Declaration of Independence, he certainly was having to placate the tribes to try to get them to not side with the British, and that was a whole mess because there was constant going back and forth on that, and there'd been previous expulsions and all that. It doesn't really work as an interpretation unless you're just trying to say that like people being taxed is the same, which it's not. It just isn't. Property tax is completely different from tribute. What? Hold on. I've never heard of this. Let's look this up. This is still a thing? Dude, I've never heard of this. What? What the heck? So they actually do tribute still. I've never heard of this. This is kind of cool. Like they actually like bring in game animals and like present them to the governor and everything. That is freaking cool. I want to see more pictures of this. Oh, you can go back pretty far. Dude, you learn something new every day. This is pretty cool. And for that, somebody you want a t-shirt? I got like 2 left. Hit me up on DMs. Let me write that down. Yeah, and by the way, in terms of the people who have corrected me and everything and gotten a T-shirt, you can either get the King one, or you can get the one that is that the bigot the Diogenes banning Woodrow Wilson. But one is of the cat, he's sitting on the couch right now. Hey, King. Nope, he's completely asleep. Or of Diogenes banning Wilson. Either of those two will be fine. But just hit me up on DMs after this so that I can get your deets and send you out a T-shirt. So let's go on to the next one. That was fascinating though. I gotta like look up more of this because I want to know the history of that. Like, is it actually a continuous thing all the way until the present, or was like there a break somewhere? Because like for instance, by the Jackson administration, there were no recognized tribes in Virginia, but I don't know about no federally recognized tribes. But did Virginia have like a separate thing? I don't know. So that's pretty cool. So Jacob Friedman says it should have been Hillary and Obama in 2000. Well, this is another one of those like wishful thinking ones, which I don't really have much to say. And like, if you think that like people wouldn't be freaking out with like Hillary care and that, like, bruh, like the Tea Party was a stupid reaction to Obamacare, and I doubt that it would have been any different under Hillary. Um, so now on to the village idiot. His name, not mine. um, Thomas Jefferson was one of the last people who should have been elected president. His notion, this is in like direct contradiction of another take earlier. His notion of states' rights was so disastrous for this country, it led to the American Civil War. That has nothing to do with his presidency. That's referring to the Virginia letters. It's Virginia and something. Um, Virginia and something letters, states' rights. Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. That's the term for it. And it was directly about like nullifying the Alien and Sedition Acts, so it wasn't really like as much about states' rights as some people like to make it out to be. But he wasn't president. Like, and him getting elected president didn't like create the notion of states' rights. So no, that doesn't really work as a take. The Pilgrims as a founding myth sucks. All right. uh so that that's like your opinion, man. As I said, a lot of these are just kind of like uh evaluation things or wishful thinking. They're not like concrete takes, concrete interpretations. They're just kind of like, I like this, I don't like this. um so they them ours um says it's referring to the multiple rocket system thing, because early in the Ukrainian war there was a bunch of things of like, oh look, it's frickin' they them tanks. Anyways, the US political system is so archaic and ineffectual since it hasn't gone through revolutionary or other shakeups that would compel a major reboot since the Civil War, unlike most of Europe. Y'all still living in 1865? No, we've had significant changes in this system since 1865. The federal government has immensely more power than it did back then. And like continues to grow. So whether or not you like it, it definitely isn't from 1865. And also like minority rights, uh bro, like the 15th Amendment was passed in the 1870s, not 1865. And furthermore, 19th Amendment, frickin' uh whatever amendment stops uh poll taxes, the right of 18-year-olds to vote. These are all things that have happened in the 20th century, let alone 19th. These are concrete changes to the government. Um so the Catholic Church is Alfredo says the Catholic Church is responsible for the humanitarian infrastructure of the U.S. What? What's that even mean? I I have no idea. It's like humanitarianism is the sole province of the Catholic Church, apparently. I don't know what the heck this even refers to, but it's just like what? what what does this even mean? Now that is a hot take right there. I have, and it's such a hot take. I don't even know what it means. um, pro-Catholic conspiracy theories, says Jordan. Yeah, that's basically what this is. um. Anyways, with so KFC history says, and I actually took a picture of this one earlier, but you'll notice has a picture of JFK right there. With all the evidence and research we currently have, I believe Lee Harvey Oswald was the sole assassin in the Kennedy assassination, and I don't find any conspiracy theories to be strong or credible. You're just kind of going with the consensus view there. You're going to find very few historians who are willing to say anything otherwise. Um, you know, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories, of course, but like in terms of credible evidence, not much. There's evidence that one of the police escorts might have accidentally fired off his weapon. Might have. I shouldn't say accidentally. I was in the freaking army and I know better than that. Might of negligently discharged. That's the proper term. Might have negligently discharged his weapon. Um, you know, in the confusion of the assassination. Although I will say, negligent discharge just sounds like another word for a wet dream, but that's the proper term. But like, yeah, this isn't much of a hot take. This is just kind of like, yeah, of course, oh. But for some reason, it's something like 60% of Americans believe some sort of conspiracy theory about the JFK assassination. It's crazy, the amount of that, and like every time, like I've seen a number of YouTubers recently trying to like who start off trying to prove a conspiracy and then end up like going completely the other direction and being like, oh, actually no, this did like all these conspiracy theories are complete bunk. And it's like, yeah, why didn't you listen to the historians about this? uh Oh, here's a super chat from Ethan W. Monster. Uh, what a monstrous take. The U.S. is naturally prone to isolationism, which is an interesting take. Actually, this is one of those ones where this is something a lot of historians actually argue about. You can't say one way or the other, but like basically since World War II, we've been in this kind of like super militarized uh, economy. But that wasn't the case before World War II. Like in terms of American history, it was completely the opposite. So like how much of current history is like the natural state of American foreign policy versus everything prior? It's an open question. Obviously, we're not very isolationist now, but we were up until 1940. 40. I wouldn't say 41, because we started the draft in October 17th, something like that, of 1940. So obviously we weren't, despite America First Committee trying to be isolationist, they were a minor faction compared to the rest of the U.S. So the the fact is we still have a very large standing army. But up until World War II, we didn't do that. We would always draw down tremendously after a war. Um, when the Civil War, which was by far the largest mobilization of Americans ever, after that, we had a standing force of like 12,000. And by the end of the decade, it was less than 10,000. Less than 10,000 troops. And mind you, they were doing a lot. So it it's like when you see stuff that happened during the Reconstruction and people start talking about like military oppression and that, it's like there's like 10,000 dudes, and they've got to deal with like the whole United States, not just the South. So like the idea that like just 10,000 dudes could administer the entire South after the rebellion, come on. Um, but you know, that was the way that the American military used to work. Now we have a large, like, professionalized army, and that's just not very in sync with American history. But it's a different era, so who knows? You could also say that there is no such thing as a natural state to American history, if you think about it. Um, and also, I'll point out that like the word "prone" in that I should point out is discomfiting, because it's like uh it makes it sound like isolationism is necessarily a bad thing. It isn't necessarily. That's up to you. But like that makes it sound like it absolutely is, and like no, that just depends on your point of view. I'm very much an anti interventionist. I really don't like interventions. We do them all the time, and we we reap the rewards of that all the time too. Um, so and I'm being facetious when I'm saying rewards. Um, but the point is, a lot of people think of isolationism as just like any kind of anti-interventionism, and if that's the case, I am. You know, I think it's a good thing, but that depends on what you think of in terms of isolationism. Too many people think of like World War II and don't think of like, you know, what if we had declared war on Germany in 1870 when we were fighting over Samoa? Like, if that had happened, I could see my camera's kind of messing up. Hold on a second. It's being weird. Oh, it's because of the daylight. Hold on, let me close the that should help. There we go. That should make it stop doing that. But the if we were completely if we were not isolationists, then we would have plunged into a war with Germany way before we could. That would have been stupid as heck. Frickin' the War of 1812 was stupid as heck. We really shouldn't have done that. And that's when we weren't being isolationist. Like, we should have been there. So far too many people think like isolationism is a bad thing, but like you've got to think of it in a larger perspective. Uh-oh. So, hold on, I think there was another one. Yes, there was. Oh, there's more. Dang it. Oh, it's hard to keep up. Okay, so, Tyler says, Piracy is bad, and making Blackbeard a hero is like making Jesse James a hero. Stop idolizing criminals. P.S. Anne Bonny is not a queer girl boss. Yeah, and by the way, for those who don't know, Tyler has become quite the expert in terms of Anne Bonny. And she's not she's not like anti-queer or anything. She is herself. But like the I don't know, there's like this kind of, you just kind of have to accept the romanticization of criminals. You know, like I play into it all the time with like Billy the Kid. You know, I'm actually a leading expert on Billy the Kid, and like um you know, to the point that I do book reviews and that. Um but like it it's I don't think it's true that the mere act of romanticizing a criminal makes them uh hold on a second, I got a bug. um makes other criminals more likely. I don't think that holds up to scrutiny. um you know, it's kind of like the same argument as like, you know, playing GTA makes you more likely to be a mass shooter. Like, no, that it just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Um, so like, there's a lot of things in terms of what we romanticize that don't fit reality, but like, sometimes you just got to go with the flow, you know. Um, plus, come on, have we ever seen an accurate depiction, like a romanticized depiction of Blackbeard that comes anywhere close to reality? I don't think so. Like we just saw recently where it was like our flag means death or something like that, and like the proximity from our flag means death and truth is like, you know, light years apart. um So yeah, I don't think that's a problem. And thank you, Lady Ashmaker. Uh, and thank you for the super chat, and one more super chat. Um, Palmer Colson says, the World War II allies redrew countries' boundaries and moved populations. In 48, UN allies created Israel. Kinda. Not that's not exactly the correct way of explaining that. Is Israel part of the World War II allies fixing? I don't know what you mean by fixing, but also, uh, the UN did draw the boundary for um, the boundary for. Oh man, there's even more super chats. I'm not getting very far into these into the Twitter ones, are we? So the UN did draw the boundaries, the initial boundaries for Israel and Palestine, but if you go back and look at the actual UN plan, it's very different from what became the case after the Israel-Arab War. Because the Arab nations invaded, and then Israel managed to win the civil war that was already kind of going on, and that's why the UN got involved in the first place. But like, um, and the British just were like, we're not done. We're done with this mandate. We're done. Please, just UN, you guys figure it out. And that's kind of how the UN was thrust into that. But if you look at the UN two-state solution of 1947. Let me pull up a map. You'll see that it's very different from what we have today. So, like, actually, this is a great little thing right here. So you can see here that Palestine was supposed to be a lot bigger than it is today. Like that's what the UN plan was supposed to be. Was this giant freaking area? And you'll see here, this is like Jewish owned land. This is not the map right here is only talking about Jewish owned land. And the map that came after the Israel Palestine, not Israel Palestine, Israel Arab War, resulted in the borders that roughly correlate with what we think of today, though the settlements and everything have made it a lot worse. But the you can't really say that the UN created that, and definitely not the Allies. So like people will want to say that like this is American history. This is not. This is definitely not American history. So yeah, it's very complicated, takes a lot of explanation, but ultimately it's not World War II allies, it's the British and and throwing it to the UN because they didn't want to deal with the civil war that was going on there. And oh man, there's a lot of super chats to catch up on. And Ethan Monster, I'm glad. It, the thing about isolationism is like there's far too many people who want to be like, oh, you're an isolationist, then you're a Nazi, and it's like, no, like there's a long history to this, and it's worth explicating though. And Still Alive says, one more. I heard this on a TED Talk once, but he said our conception of racism was basically invented by a 15th century Portuguese dude named Gomes de Zurara. He elaborated more in that video. You're talking about the I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. He wrote a book called Stamped from the Beginning. It's like Ibram X Kendi, I think. I think that's correct, but probably him is what you're talking about. I don't know who Gomez de Zurara was, but I'm sure I can come up with it. Gomez Ianez de Zurara. And so, like, Kendi's argument is that because this guy basically came up with a way of justifying African slavery in Portugal. But the problem is he doesn't talk about it as like a blood deficiency, which is different. He was mostly using the Aristotelian sense. So if you want a larger sense of how like racialization developed, at least in the Western world, I did a whole episode on that. It's like 40 minutes long, so it's quite comprehensive. But but really, it wasn't like our modern version of race was developed in the 17th century. So that's like 2 centuries off. So yeah, the argument here is that like in justifying African slavery, he basically created the modern form of racism, but that doesn't really work as an explanation because it wasn't multiplied. It wasn't like thought of as like a blood thing. It takes that development of whiteness to really get to the point that we understand race as the way that we think of race today. And that's late 17th century. In fact, the first time we see the term human races is like 1680s. So very much later. And it was in French, not Portuguese. And finally, would you recommend getting your PhD or master's in history, even if it means tackling or talking out, taking out student loans? Um, I mean, it depends. You know, look, student loans are things that like you have to be prepared to sign your life away, really, and like that's essentially what you're going to be uh what you'll be doing in that. But at the same time, uh there's a lot of programs that work with you in terms of funding. And sometimes you need to get like a student loan for something very minor, like what I had. I had student loans for my master's, and I only signed out $10,000, and I managed to pay them off. I don't have any student loans. Um, I don't actually have any loans. Um, I paid off my car. I don't know, 2000 in 2008, I think. Paid off my motorcycle in 2011. Um, I I rent, so I don't have a mortgage. Although I plan to eventually buy if I get the job that I'm hoping to get. Fingers crossed. But uh, you know, it's not easy to get a job, and so if you sign out a student loan, uh, you are going to have a hard time paying it off, since getting a job as a historian is incredibly difficult. I'm in that process right now. Um, and I have a really good job prospect that I'm really hoping on, and it pays really well. But uh, there's still the possibility that I won't get it, and I'm just screwed for another year. Um, I mean, I've interviewed 4 times just this since the beginning of the year. So 4 times. I know one of them I didn't get that job, but they're I'm kind of there's not a lot of jobs out there. It's a highly impacted field, so be highly wary of getting student loans to pay for a graduate degree in history. Um, Instead, look for funding. Hope that you can get funding. I got funding for mine. I had the GI Bill for masters, and I had I worked for as a graduate assistant and a graduate instructor uh, during my PhD, and then my final year I had a fellowship, the Bolensky Fellowship. So you know I actually was able to pay for everything without having to take out loans throughout my entire PhD. It was only my master's that I had to do that, and I paid off that. It was $10,000. Uh, it I think I paid it off in like late 2019. I graduated in 2016 for my master's. So yeah, it's doable, but like you got to really think about what you're doing. Hopefully that answers your question there. Um, it's a very important question. Why is becoming a historian so difficult? Because nobody wants to pay for us. Freaking, so many history departments are getting downsized, and freaking everybody's complaining that we're too woke and all that kind of stuff, and trying to use that to destroy the history profession. A lot of departments that when somebody finally steps down after 40 years of being employed as a historian or whatever, they're being replaced with an adjunct with like 3 adjunct positions instead of a tenure track position. um, there's constant downsizing happening, and there's also just the fact that like people don't want to retire. They just, we still have, like in my department, we still have some boomers, like, who are still, there. Um, I don't blame them for not wanting to retire. It's, it's up to them. But like at the same time, it means that their job isn't being filled by somebody else. There's only so many positions, and even with somebody who has like a YouTube channel like this, it's kind of difficult to. I don't make enough money to live off of YouTube, and so it's very difficult to find a job. There are tons of public history positions that if you're looking for a part-time position or a fairly low-paying position, there's a ton of that. But like a good-paying job that you can live off of and retire on, not so much. It's a highly impacted thing. Every time I'm applying to a new position, there's like 100 applicants that are all qualified. So imagine having to try to get a position like that. And one more. Okay, so missed the entire stream. It's okay. I'm probably going to be on here for another half an hour, at least. I haven't even finished my first beer. It's been over 2 hours and I haven't finished one beer. But all I could say is that in response to your probably woke ideology, America always does the right thing after exhausting all other options. Well, that's a heck of a roller coaster of a comment right there. I recognize your username and everything, so I knew you weren't going to be, a reactionary. But like the way you worded that's great. After exhausting all other options. Cheers. Ah. All right. Let's try to get through a few more of these, huh? So going to Christian Weibrecht, um, Weibrecht. I don't know if it's like English pronunciation or German, but I'm gonna go with German because it just sounds cool. Weibrecht. Christian Weibrecht says we should have given Cuba and the Dominion Republic a chance to join the referring to the Union in 1898. So the problem was in when we declared war in 1898, the Democrats really didn't want to annex Cuba, and so they put in a stipulation that we couldn't annex Cuba after the war. But I kind of agree with Christian. Like we shouldn't have done that. We should have like given the option, but also we should have given it as an option, not like they can either be independent or join the United States. Vote on it, and that should have happened with the Philippines. That should have happened with Puerto Rico. Heck, I don't know about Guam. Guam's weird because Guam kind of needed protectorate status. Otherwise, it would have been very easy prey by the Japanese, who were already starting to expand by 1898. But besides Guam, all the rest of them should have been given the right to vote to either be in the Union or gain independence, and not in some sort of colonial status. Because with like the Philippines or Puerto Rico, it should have instantly become a territory, but there was a whole bunch of steps in between. Like Puerto Rico is now a territory, but like there was a whole lot of colonialism in between that, you know. Um, so the next one is just saying this for the sheer heck of it, obviously. This I actually recognize the username and everything. Um, and Jertra is a longtime follower. But you know, I don't think he was misunderstood. I think he was yeah, I think we understand him quite well, and he was just a jerk. But you know, Wilson. Um, so next, Cavalry Scout, another longtime follower. Um, the American Revolution is a natural and inevitable extension of the English Civil War, starting with the high numbers of refugees of the war who settled in the colonies, Puritanism, conflicts with both natives and other Europeans caused by that war, etc. Kind of, you know, I take issue with the word inevitable there. Um, History is never inevitable. There's always contingency, right? Um, you know, things can always end up differently, but there is a certain amount of like, you know, one thing caused another thing, caused another thing, caused another thing that led to the American Revolution. Um, and so, yeah, the English Civil War, um, you know, had we shouldn't say that just the English Civil War, but the War of the Three Kingdoms. Um, the War of the Three Kingdoms is not just the English Civil Wars, plural. Actually, there's two of them. But the the entirety of all of those wars, which ended up affecting the colonies, and not so much what led. I wouldn't say that that led directly to like uh conflicts between other Europeans. I think he's referring to the I think he's referring to like the Williamite War, but the Williamite War is the Glorious Revolution. That's 1690s. Um and no, I think the Williamite War is like 1688. Um but in either case, that is you know, King William's War in the Americas, and then of course there's like, you know, the War of Spanish Succession, which we know as Queen Anne's War. Um, and yeah, I wouldn't say that those are directly related to the English Civil War, but there's a interesting thing that Cavalry Scout here is missing, that is a direct result of the English Civil War and leads directly to the American Revolution. The Bill of Rights. Like the Bill of Rights was a result of the English Civil War, the English Bill of Rights. Now it took a while for it to be instituted and everything, especially because of the absolutist kings. But once it was instituted, that was the rights that Americans were saying, that patriots were saying they had been removed from them by Parliament. So in so doing, there is a direct connection. It's just a little more ideological than like people and specific wars and all that kind of stuff. So interesting take, but not exactly quite there. So, the Mexican-Texan War, what? I think they mean the Texan Revolution, um, was about slavery. Uh, so it did have slavery elements to it, for sure. But that it was about slavery, no, just that's plain false. That is absolutely false. Um, no, the Texan Revolution was about the rise of Santa Anna and the Siete Leyes. But that would require knowing about like Mexican history rather than just putting American history on Mexico. Like, if you're going to talk about the Texians and their beef with the with the centralist government, you can't just map American history onto Mexico. You have to engage with Mexican history. Like, people really need to stop doing this, where they just up take one central issue throughout and then just say that that's the thing that did everything throughout history. It's basically a conspiracy theory at that point. So no, Theon lyric, that's just wrong. Uh, so uh, just making sure I'm not missing anything in the comments. It's really hard to keep up with the comments because there's so much going on there. Um, so uh, no, Santa Anna didn't outlaw slavery. Slavery was already outlawed. The Mexican Constitution of 1829 specifically outlaws slavery. It was already outlawed. So that's the thing. You'd have to actually like pay attention to Mexican history to understand how like slavery was an issue, but it wasn't a driving issue. Um, well, it was a driving issue, but it wasn't like one of the main issues of the Texan Revolution. But you can kind of tell that this guy's not coming at it as with like an honest perspective when he's calling it the Mexican-Texan War, like it was a war between nations. Like, the Texas didn't exist as an independent country yet. It was a rebellion until it was successful. That's the rule. When it is a rebellion that is successful is called a revolution. Duh. So onward. Oh, and Tyler putting clarifying her position from before says that she doesn't think liking Blackbeard makes people more likely to be pirates. I just want people to stop making pirates freedom-loving democracy heroes. Screw Redeker. Oh man, yeah, Redeker has really he really has been a problem. I like Redeker and all, but that, but like, yeah, it's a problem. It's a bad interpretation. Anyways, uh, the Northerners, according to Comsrad, um, the Northerners do not get enough scrutiny when it comes to supporting and benefiting from slavery, but just not in their backyard. Oh Christ! I just realized it's slavery NIMBY. Yeah, I agree. The the fact is, um, free soilers were largely against slavery because they didn't want it to compete with, uh, they didn't want it to compete uh, oh, and I see Tom Holla putting it more succinctly about the whole previous one. Hold on a second. Um, so about the whole like, you know, Texas Revolution being about Texians wanting slavery, and Tom Holla here says an issue was Lopez de Santa Anna, Antonio de Lopez de Santa Anna staging a coup. The Texians had the alternative of staging a counter coup and taking the whole country, or a separatist movement. So yeah, like, it was a movement against Santa Anna. Like, the thing that people who say this, by the way, like, completely seem to forget, because they are very much just trying to map American history onto Texas, onto Mexico, when it wasn't. Mexico isn't America. Um, but the people who do this seem to forget, like, all the other rebellions that happened that year. And the Texian rebellion began in 1835. They didn't declare independence until 36. Just kind of like the American Revolution, where the fighting started in 1775, didn't declare independence until 1776. For some reason, that I just had a conversation with a friend who has a master's in history and was all tripped up about that for some reason. It's like, no, the Continental Army formed in 1775. But uh, for instance, if you just go to like Mexican rebellions 1835, that's Cristero War. I said 8. Oh, that says 1835. Yeah, and this isn't even all of it. So you see, you have the Yucatan. Zacatecas was actually the first to rebel. I don't know about Durango. I'm not sure if anything happened in Durango. But like New Mexico did, and guess what? So did. Well, this is calling it Los Californias. That is inaccurate. Alta California had been split in 1824, so that doesn't make any sense. I don't know why it says Los Californias. This is, it's a Wikipedia map. It's not going to be completely accurate, but like, Alta California had a successful rebellion as well. New Mexico had a successful rebellion up until it fell apart. The Rio Grande Republic, that happened in 1839. And the Yucatan was completely independent until after the Mexican-American War. So like the idea that like all of these were happening, but like Texas is completely separate from all of this. What? No. Like, try to learn about like Mexican history if you're going to talk about Mexican history, but like, don't try to just take American history and apply your own assumptions on top of it. It doesn't work. This is wrong. So anyways, getting back to Comsred with a much more interesting thing about slavery NIMBYism. So free soilers were absolutely about trying to prevent labor competition with slavery, rather than like they weren't anti-slavery because they saw it as like a morally abhorrent institution. It was about the white man's labor being being outcompeted by the completely costless labor of slaves. It really didn't have anything to like. Free soilers were primarily concerned about labor, not freedom. So that's why you have to make the differentiation between like abolitionists and anti-slavery. Like, Lincoln was anti-slavery, not an abolitionist. And the that's also why he was very much in favor of the whole back to Africa thing. And the reason why the North was okay with getting rid of slavery in the late 18th and early 19th century was because they relied on slave labor to produce cash crops that they would in turn either transport or finance or manufacture in the North. So the North was extremely dependent on slave labor, even though it didn't exist in the North. So this is actually a really important uh, thing to understand about slavery running into the Civil War. It really wasn't like this idea of like right versus wrong. It was more how the North was deeply implicated in this system, but had been able to remove itself just slightly one step away from the worst parts of the system, being slavery. And Rebur's, no, you're just you're just plain wrong. So the next one is from Rosenkreutz, alleged YouTuber, who says 1812 was the biggest blunder America ever actively undertook. I actually was kind of arguing that earlier in the stream. Like, I agree with this. And it's all Madison's fault. Okay, well, I don't agree with that. I definitely don't agree with that. No, it's not all Madison's fault. And the White House being burned down was getting off lightly. True. We could have lost the Republic. Like, I mean, seriously, just think if the British had the manpower to mount an invasion like they had back in freaking 1775, would it be I mean, no, more like 1776 was the largest troop buildup in the during the American Revolution. But the of the British, not the Americans. But anyways, the largest troop buildup for the Americans would be 1777. No, 78 after the Valley Forge. Wisdom in a can. So, but referring to the fact that I just poured another. But besides the whole it being Madison's fault, like, no, that's just like there's a whole complex build up towards the War of 1812. Like, let me. In fact, I actually published an episode about the my lecture of 1812. Hold on, let me pull up the lecture. But if we pull that up, you know, there's a whole lot of stuff going on in terms of the causes of this. And I don't think anyone can blame any singular political figure for any of this, right? Like, it's way too complex. And here's the other thing that a lot of people seem to not understand about the end of it. Like, we got everything we wanted out of the war. Like, trust me, I don't disagree with this, but we actually got everything we wanted out of it. End of impressment, the removal of British support to Indian barrier state stuff, the the end of forced embargoes, um, like all of that, we won, right? But like the problem was it didn't really win militarily. Yeah, there was the Battle of New Orleans, but that technically happened after the peace treaty, and the peace treaty basically just gave those initial concerns about impressment and support to tribes. Um, like that's it. It's not much of a victory there, especially considering the cost. You know, not just the White House burning, but Congress as well. Congress also burned. Um, the Library of Congress was destroyed. Like, and that was a pretty valuable resource. The reason why we don't have the a lot of the 1790 census is because it got burned by the British in 1814. But you know that's it's complicated. So in terms of saying like who won, because you know, despite getting the things we wanted, if that's just the bare minimum for victory, then yeah, we won. But like, is that really the minimum for victory, or do you have to like not have everything get burnt to a crisp? So, uh, and we really shouldn't have been doing that. I don't know why they kept on just egging on the most powerful empire in the world, save for the fact that you know there was the Napoleonic Wars going on at the same time. But like 1812 was not a good year for Napoleon. So you know, if Madison and them were and the Democratic Republicans were banking on the British being distracted by Napoleon, that was a blunder. That was a huge freaking blunder. I saw that there is a super chat. Hold on a second. Let me pull it up. So Kelly says, in your professional experience, was Reconstruction possible to achieve its goals, or did it lose momentum during the 1876 election? So we were talking earlier in uh that's right, I think it was a super chat. Let me find it real quick. Oh yeah, it was about isolationism. We talked a little bit about like isolationism and how like the U.S. Army used to just completely draw down after a war very rapidly. Now, something you have to understand that the way that the the military was organized is very different from today. There was regulars, militia, which those two kind of still exist. The militia nowadays is just called the National Guard, but like it kind of the National Guard Act of 1903 kind of just nationalized all the militias and turned them into a National Guard. There are state militias still, but like they're kind of weird. They don't matter. It's just kind of like showboating in California and Texas, you know. Um, Weird. But there was a third category that was eliminated by the 1903 Nationalization Act, which was the volunteers. We used to have volunteer units. Now you'll hear the term, you know, like it's an all volunteer army, as the propaganda liked to say back in 1973, but that's referring to just people voluntarily enlisting. That has nothing to do with volunteer units. There's no such thing as volunteer units anymore. Um, it's funny. Teddy was the one to eliminate volunteer units, and yet he actually was had created a volunteer unit in the Spanish American War. But those volunteer units only sign up for the war. They are voluntary. And so the when you have that kind of structure set up, uh, you can't really stop a massive withdrawal. That was kind of part of the point of the 1903 restructuring, uh, what was called the New Army. And the New Army was trying to prevent this kind of thing. But when you have such a big drawdown, you can't really enforce the law against a hostile populace. So the very structure of the U.S. Army, of the U.S. military, kind of guaranteed the failure of Reconstruction. And mind you, there wasn't such a thing like there wasn't like a lot of federal law enforcement. There were things like marshals, but marshals are actually uh, are officers of the court. So a little bit different from like a what you think of as a normal law enforcement officer. They're there mostly to do the bidding of judges, um, and uh, there were police forces, but but police forces weren't. There was no such thing as state police. There wouldn't be for nearly a century. Um, but like uh, state police forces just didn't exist yet. So police forces uh, were largely urban things, and then you have like uh, constables and sheriffs, um, who are also part of the judiciary rather than the executive, and that means that they cannot. They are still kind of required to do the bidding of judges, either probates or county judges, um, and so like they're not law enforcement as something that you can just order around, say for through judges, by executing writs. So the entire structure of American law enforcement and and the American military kind of meant that like Reconstruction was doomed to fail. Um, it's a very complex explanation, I know, and I'm trying to like explain how the law worked more than a century ago, and it's very different today. But we actually still have a lot of these things today. Um, especially if you're living in a place that doesn't have police. Um, but like without police or a gendarmerie, which as in constabulary troops, people who can who are military who can do law enforcement, you can't really enforce Reconstruction. Um, those military Reconstruction acts were trying to do it with like 10,000 people, and half the army is in the West. They have other things to do, so you get like 5,000 dudes to try to administer the entirety of the South. Is doomed to failure. It's just plain doomed to failure, and that was because of the way that we drew down after immediately afterward. So by 1876, like with the corrupt bargain and all that, um, you know, yeah, we get the Posse Comitatus Act in 1877 with Hayes coming into office and basically saying that the military will no longer be used for any kind of constabulary action without declaring an insurrection. The problem with that is, while a lot of people are like really anti-police today, if you wanted to have civil rights, you needed police. Like, police were the good guys here. And like we didn't have it. The South just didn't have much in terms of police. Um, so it was doomed to failure. So, hold on. Just making sure I didn't miss anything. Uh, oh, I did. Hold on. It's one from Tyler. Uh, so Tyler says, true crime has been a net negative for crime history. Lowering the barrier to entry has flooded the market uh, with so much garbage and terrible fanboys. Yep. Yep. I give this 2 thumbs up. Absolutely. I actually rather despise true crime stuff. And while I don't really do criminology stuff, I'm like in the hazy realm in between criminology and military history, and like uh and even there, like the sheer amount of stupid that I've had to read about, like Kehoe or the Espinosas, like insane amount of freaking just conspiracy theorism and on things that like most people have never even heard of, you know? And it makes it real difficult to even talk about it. And like, oh man, the amount of true crime stuff about like the Lincoln County War and Billy the Kid and that, like, I am actually a leading expert on Billy the Kid, and like, um, all the true crime stuff around him, which that's nothing new. Like he became famous because of Pulp Fiction. Um, while he was still alive, his escape from Lincoln County Jail is basically what propelled him into the limelight. Uh, Not any of his exploits during the Lincoln County War. Um, but you know that sensationalism that surrounds them it makes it near impossible to get at the truth. Even when you're trying to get at a larger topic, such as like the incorporation of the Southwest, which kind of more important than like, was Billy the Kid a cool dude? Um, but like it's not really anything new. Um, I think a lot of people think that true crime is like a new topic and all that, and like, oh, look at all the podcasts and everything, and it's like, yeah, but what about like America's Most Wanted and you know cops and uh you know freaking uh Dragnet? you know these are all true crime things. These are all like ridiculously popular in their time, arguably more popular than any podcast whatsoever today. Dragnet definitely had more viewers than frickin' Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's literally the most popular frickin' podcaster there is. Um, and Dragnet had more viewership. So, like, no, I think true crime's been a problem from the get go, all the way back to the 18th century. Nothing new there. Go on, trying to. There we go. What do you think a police procedural is? If it's about actual crimes, that's true crime. Uh, so like, have I done a Billy the Kid video? Not really. I've done videos about the Lincoln County War. I've done multiple videos. You can go to my Lincoln County War video, my uh, uh, video on my dissertation, and my reconsidering the Lincoln County War, which or which is actually not really about the Lincoln County War. I'm doing a bit of a switcheroo there, um, but like, um, you know, it's but yeah, I've done a lot on Billy the Kid, even on this channel. Yeah. So, how much time do we have? Oh man, it's already 3 hours. Let's do like two more and call it a night. Man, we did not get even like a quarter of the way through the Twitter ones. So let's continue on with the Twitter ones. See how much further we can get. So first, they should have just given Teddy the Republican ticket when he wanted to run for the third term, says Clancy. Honestly, I think it's the other way around. Teddy should have stepped back and like been like, okay, fine, just freaking let Taft run. Like honestly, Taft was a good it was a good president. Like he took a lot of the things that Teddy did, and obviously Taft just did not have the charisma, but the like in terms of uh monopoly busting, I mean trust busting, like Taft was better at it. Like obviously Teddy set the foundation for Taft's trust busting, but he actually busted more trusts. Um and like dollar diplomacy is a lot better than gunboat diplomacy. Yeah, like sorry Teddy, but yeah, that I think everybody can kind of agree on that one. So, Aaron says, this is a bit of a hot take with my Hispanic Native American history prof, and I have. Anyway, here's it goes. The United States is a Latino country. I kind of don't want you to explain. I just I like I like just the baffling take. But okay, let's see the explanation. Um, okay, well, uh, it isn't explained. Okay. Uh, I don't really know what to make of this one. uh, like Latino is mostly referring to whether or not it is a Spanish-speaking country, and we certainly are not that. In fact, the population of the United States is like even the Hispanic population isn't like doesn't majority speak Spanish. So I don't really know what that means. um so Martin says and oh, I remember this one. This one's really good. So someone really needs to write a book called "The Influence of Mayhens: The Influence of Sea Power," because holy crap, did that book make some trouble? I'll point out that I've actually made a video about this already. I guess it's this way. The, the monitor's over here for me, but it's over here for you guys, I guess. But the I made a video about this a while back, part of Team C's, if you remember Team C's. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I actually uh I have like a book specifically about that. Hold on a second. Oh, I've already got the bibliography thing here. Okay, cool. Um so okay, that's just Mahan himself. Oh yeah. So here you go. Here's an article that specifically talks about the influence of Mahan. Um, there's more. I guess I have to pull up the. So if I just pull this one up, this has my bibliography. Yeah, and there's even some books that I didn't read, so I just crossed them out. But like, there's even more stuff about like Mahan that I didn't even use for that. Um, but like, uh, here's a whole bunch of books about like Mahan's influence. There you go. Like, this is actually pretty well studied. Basically, uh, Alfred Thayer Mahan, he actually kind of set off the battleship building boom in the late 19th and early 20th century. So I've even seen in one of these books actually like straight up said that like the military buildup leading to World War I was largely an effect of Alfred Thayer Mahan, an American, an American naval officer. But like, yeah, the there's actually plenty of other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with it, but these ones, uh, you know, 21st century Mahan, like that's a edited volume, but it's talking about like how Mahan is still relevant in the 21st century. So like, I didn't use that one because obviously I was looking at like the build up to World War One, but like, um, you know, there was a lot there, just a ton of stuff. Because yeah, he kind of started an arms race just by writing a book. No joke. So yeah, I agree with this. um, how much time we got? Still got like 10 minutes. Um, so Matt says, if it wasn't for Watergate and the Vietnam War, Nixon and LBJ would have been among the best and most popular presidents we had. I don't know about Nixon. Uh, like, it's kind of hard to get over all of his red baiting, you know, and like the whole forced busing thing. Like, there's a lot of retrenchment in the Nixon administration. But LBJ, yeah, definitely. If the Vietnam War, if like there hadn't been such a big ramp up during his administration, we would definitely look a lot more favorably on LBJ. Like that is the main problem with LBJ is is Vietnam. Watergate certainly soiled Nixon's reputation more than anything else, but like there's a lot of other things that soiled Nixon's reputation. So don't exactly agree with the Nixon part of that, but LBJ, yeah, I agree. And uh, Rebor's like is yeah, that is actually a very good point. Removing Vietnam uh makes Nixon and LBJ like completely different presidents. Yeah. Uh like it really like what even does like think about the White House plumbers were created specifically to go after Daniel Ellsberg, right? The Pentagon Papers and everything, and that was all about Vietnam, and like that's the beginning of the Watergate scandal and everything. So like Watergate is still inherently mixed up with Vietnam. Um, so like yeah, it's hard to remove Vietnam from Nixon and LBJ. So on to the next one. Connor says, the period of Reconstruction is the most important era of U.S. history and has had an enormous impact to this day. I don't know about most important. That's one of those, like, superlatives that seems a bit much. The creation of the country seems a bit more important than, its reconstruction. Like, I'd say the revolution kind of caused one, not the other way around. So when you're talking about importance, you have to understand, like, no matter what, the things that come before are technically more important than the things that come after. But in terms of having an enormous impact, yeah. In fact, uh, it's the reason why we divide U.S. history. Like, I'm currently teaching the second half. The first half of American history, which is divided in 1877. This week, next week, I will be teaching about the Civil War. Then the week after, I'll be teaching about Reconstruction. So boom, boom, one after the other, and then finals. So, like, literally next week Civil War, the week after that Reconstruction, then finals. So Reconstruction is literally the last thing I teach in this class. But at the same time, Reconstruction failed. So it's important to teach, but at the same time, it was a failure. So I don't know how much you could say it's had an enormous impact when it failed. And Leon mentioned whatever. I'll point out that that's not the correct quote. The correct quote is from George Santa Anna. Santa Anna said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And it's just a fun kind of, like, saying for we should try to learn the past. But Santa Anna was actually more talking about, like, past experience rather than, like, history. But as I saw in another article, those who cannot quote Santa Anna are doomed to paraphrase him. But I like using the phrase, but it's more referring to, like, we should learn from the past. Duh. Anyways, and something about Santa Anna I should point out. When he wrote that, he was in New York. He was a New Yorker. He was an American. He is far too often identified as a Spanish philosopher. He did most of his freaking philosophizing in New York, not Spain. Oh, and he spent some time in California. Actually, that's kind of where he grew up, was California. Anyways, so which one are we? Okay, here we are. So Cyril and Rowan says the Treaty of Tordesillas means Pope Alexander VI is an honorary founding father. But I don't know why somebody paid you to write this. What? But so the Treaty of Tordesillas is the what, 1490s treaty. it's like 1490s of and here we go. 1494. Yeah, so 2 years after Columbus. So the treaty divided the world down this line right here, right? Um, Now, and as you can see, it was officially declared by a papal bull a year prior, but the treaty was signed slightly uh, westward from the papal bull. So, you know, be more the signers of the treaty, wouldn't it, with Spain and Portugal? But the whole thing is that it divided the earth between Spain and Portugal. So, uh, these were technically the lines um, that, like, this is the Spanish world, this is the Portuguese world, this is the Spanish world again. They kind of had to renegotiate it because of the Philippines and everything, but that's a whole different thing. But like that's why Brazil speaks Portuguese as opposed to Spanish, because that was the Portuguese realm. Um, you know, obviously this is kind of just wishful thinking in 1494, but you know, kind of important. Does that make him an honorary founding father? Does that does like is Christopher Columbus a founding father now? No. Obviously Christopher Columbus is not a founding father. Amerigo Vespucci is not a founding father. Frickin' Christopher Hudson is not a founding father. Yeah, they're explorers and treaty makers and whatnot, but like they're not a founding father. A founding father is the people who were part of the founding of the United States, which is specifically in the 1770s. You know, they had to be a participant in either the war or its or you know, the signing of the Declaration of Independence or the creation of the Constitution. Um, you know, they have to be part of one of those things to have been a founding father. Um, so yeah, but it is it's a pretty funny statement. You know, just an honorary founding father. Which I guess if you're just including like explorers and treaty makers, sure, why not? It's pretty funny. I see we have a super chat, um, which is perfect because I think that will be the end of the stream. I'm guessing I'm going to have to do this again because I'm not very far down in this in all of the. Oh, I wanted to get to lessons learned. That was another one I wanted to talk about. So, uh, I'll answer this real quick. Oh, it's not a question. So Ethan says, one thing I learned from learning about history YouTube is that history is hard. Yes, yes, it is. You know, I've been in uh I've been in higher education since 2007. Um, I started I changed over to being a history major in 2011. So and I graduated with my PhD in last year. So 12 years between becoming a history major and getting my PhD. It's a long time. Um, yeah, and history requires a lot of work. I would dare say that historians of all the different disciplines, historians probably read the most. Um, at least modern historians. Medievalists, they kind of get away with reading very little because they don't have many sources. You know, medievalists and classicists, uh, they just don't have a lot to read. But modernists, we just have so much to read compared to basically any other discipline. Um, we also end up writing the most, but we're like the one discipline that holds up academic presses. Like literally like the only thing that is profitable for academic presses is history. All the rest of it is like they got like history sales, and then like everything else down here is just like being held aloft by all the history sales. So, you know, um, got to make a profit somewhere. Uh, so I wanted to get to this lessons learned one, because this one I know is actually a pretty interesting take. So this one says, instead of dividing American history in the antebellum and post-Civil War eras, we don't actually divide that. The first and second halves are divided by Reconstruction, not antebellum, not the Civil War itself, but by Reconstruction. But anyways, or pre-World War II and post-war. So I guess talking about like contemporary, but that's referring to like world history, not American history. Um, we should divide American history in the periods of Inland Empire, pre 1898, and Maritime Empire post 1898. So my first reaction to that is, why is Maritime Empire begin in 1898? Like, we freaking, like, in 1813 we declared Nuka Hiva to be ours. Like, that was our first declared possession in the Pacific, and that's 1813. Um, we didn't even have freaking Texas yet. um, heck, we haven't even worked out like who owned the Oregon Territory yet, or even joint occupation. That wouldn't be until 1818. Um, for obvious reasons, kind of at war with Britain at the time. So, bit of a problem with the periodization there, but also, what's interesting though is not so much maritime empire. I don't think that works very well, but uh, like global power would be a better term rather than maritime empire. Like, replace that term with the word global power, and suddenly you've got a really interesting split there between pre and post Spanish American War. Also, the annexation of Hawaii was also 1898. Bit of a separate issue there, but kind of same thing. But the defeat of such a decisive defeat of Spain, especially since we actually had inferior weaponry. Like, a lot of people don't realize this, but like, the Spanish had far better weaponry than us in 1898. Like, we were absolutely outclassed in terms of our weaponry, and yet we trounced them. Absolutely trounced the Spanish Empire. So that was kind of our stepping out on the world stage. We'd had previous, like, kind of run-ins with various European powers. The first time we intervened in freaking in Asia was the crud. I'm forgetting the name of the island, but it's one of the Indonesian islands that we shot up in like 1808, something like that. Because they like shot at one of our things, and there's like a cardinal rule with American foreign policy is, you do not screw with our boats. Do not screw with American boats. You will regret it. And we were showing that as early as like 1808. But Yeah, and by the way, Christopher, you think the Spanish Navy was hopelessly outdated? Buddy, I hate to break it to you, but so was the American Navy. And also, the Navy didn't matter that much. Like, you have freaking the Pacific Fleet going around, just kind of popping in and saying hello, but like didn't really fight any kind of major battle besides Manila. And Manila, we kind of caught them off guard. Um, and that was a surprising defeat. Like, there's a reason why Dewey was like a household name after that, because Dewey absolutely should have lost that battle if he was any lesser of a commander. um, but like, we just had like really good people. That's the difference. Um, but furthermore, the Navy didn't matter. Uh, it was the Army that mattered, and the best equipped in the U.S. Army was the first volunteer cavalry under Teddy Roosevelt. Well, it started off under forgetting his name. It started off under another commander, but then he got promoted, and then it was Teddy. Uh, but like, definitively had worse cannons, worse uh small arms. Like, they're using machine guns and we're using Gatling guns. Like, the difference is night and day, And the funny thing is, if you think about it, like, the US invented so much of those things. Like, the Maxim machine gun, that's an American invention. The Colt potato digger, like, that was actually invented for the US Army. Um, although I think that's after the war. I could be wrong. Uh, the obviously the Colt revolver. Uh, these are all American inventions, and yet we're going in a battle with freaking Gatling guns. Come on. Also an American invention. Don't get me wrong, but like, it's an American invention from the 1860s going against Maxim machine guns. Like, no. The US was actually way outclassed in terms of weaponry, and yet we won. Um, and after the war, that kind of signaled America's prominence to the entire world. From 1900 onward, it's like a clear trend in terms of like military power, where like we're just constantly going up, where everybody else is kind of is only barely able to keep up. And by World War II, it's obvious. We're the arsenal of democracy. And that starts with with the I see the words. I'm guessing King was behind me at some point. But that starts with the Spanish American War. But this is kind of too focused on foreign policy rather than like domestic history. Like, how much of this has to do with domestic history? Like, what's the difference between 1898 and any other year? So that's the reason why you don't see that kind of division in American history. But I will point out that is a standard division in military history. So American military history, yeah, you do see this division. It doesn't really work for American history, and especially calling it maritime empire, that doesn't quite work. but global power, definitely. You can say global power there. In fact, that Max Boot book that I was recommending earlier does exactly that division. Um, so yeah, interesting point. But very much looking at like a military history. Um, oh, is that supposed? You talk about this thing where it's supposed to be? Because I just see. I thought you were talking about like my cat was behind me or something. Okay, apparently that's the emoji for Palestine. So me at cats, Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. Oh, actually, King is right here. I didn't even notice. He's been on camera this whole time. Hey, King, look, he's right there. He's kind of hiding. Hey, how you doing? Tell you what. So we're just about we're past the time I wanted to continue streaming. So let's end this stream by giving King some kitty treats, huh? Want some kitty treats? Oh boy. Oh yeah, he wants some kitty treats. There you go. Give King some kitty treats and call it a night. There we go. He's a good boy. That's a good boy. I always let him lick my fingers so that he can get whatever dust is on there. Um, so, I think that's where I've got to end it, guys. We did not get very far in all of them. I think we got about half of all of them. So there's plenty more for another round of this. So maybe in a few weeks I'll do another stream like this. For those who are interested on Twitch, I'm thinking Wednesday I'm going to do a purge party. I haven't actually moderated the comments on the April Fools and Moral Panics episodes. Um, well, you just want more, huh? Yeah, no, there's no more. This is beer. You can't have this. But I'm thinking Wednesday I'll do a purge party on that. For those who got a T-shirt, be sure to hit me up in direct messages. I have your names written down. I think there's 4. Yeah, there's 4 of you. And Himmelgonger, yeah, that's what a purge party is. It's when I drop the band hammer. Prairie Fire's like, no, I think we covered all of history. We did it! Woohoo! Hey, you're king. Yes. Whoa. So, the that's a good note to leave it on. Wednesday, I'm planning on doing the purge party, and also I'll be putting out an episode. I don't remember which day it is, but it will be for. Oh yeah, it'll be Wednesday. It'll be the. I'm going to be releasing a video on the Armenian genocide. And that'll be on the 24th, which is Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. So be sure to tune in for that. And I will talk to y'all in the next one.